Hey everybody, it's Joe, coming to you from the closet/recording booth here in the compound. Yeah, I realize I smile funny. I've been auditioning lately, and at the beginning of auditions, they make you slate. And a slate is where you simply say your name and maybe how tall you are, what city you're from. And in the class that I took, they tell you you're supposed to smile. And then I go back and look at my footage, and I smile like a guy who doesn't know how to smile. It's like, it just, I look stupid. And I haven't booked anything, so maybe I'm slating wrong. It's early in the morning. I've had trouble sleeping, so I at a certain point I say, well, I guess I'm up, and then I'll meditate for an hour because you should. I mean, I should. You do what you want, and then I gotta get another video out. So I'm getting another interview out this week. I know I've missed a couple weeks. I have no excuses. This week, fascinating guy, Josh Davis. He is an expert on football. Well, not just the NFL, but mostly non-NFL leagues, and there's a lot of them. And we go into them. We kind of go one by one on a lot of them. We talk about his background, and I really dig this dude because he's not just into what he does and makes a living at it, but he's a fan of these players. He's not just a reporter. He actually roots for these guys to get out of these leagues and get onto the NFL and make a ton of money, which some of them deserve. I mean, they have a really hard go at things. But anyway, I hope you like this talk, and it's not just about sports, so don't be fooled. I don't mean about this. I mean in general. Don't be fooled.
Josh Davis, what a treat to finally talk to you, man. Thank you for your time. How you doing?
Hey, how's it going? I appreciate you having me. I know that it's taking a little bit, but things are quite busy right now.
Yeah, well, you're a family man for one, and number two, it's August, so you've got preseason NFL, and it seems like all the other leagues are in one stage or another of preseason, postseason, draft, and so on. Let's get right to it. Where are you from originally?
Originally from Kentucky,
Okay, and who was your NFL team growing up?
Philadelphia, the Eagles.
Oh, the Eagles. So
Yeah.
you understand pain.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, except for that
sure
Super Bowl
do.
a few years ago against New England, they've had some difficult days.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah.
To
So,
say the least.
well, good on you for your loyalty. When did you first become aware of these non NFL leagues or these alternative leagues, as they're called?
To be honest, I'm old enough to have attended a few of the USFL games from the '80s.
Really, you
Yeah.
don't look old enough to have. I remember that league.
Yeah, I'm 43. My aunt and uncle live in Jacksonville. We would go there. We still do. Random times throughout the year, and right now they're season ticket holders for the Jaguars, so they're big football fans. They went to Florida State, so ever since I don't know any better, I'm a Florida State fan. So. They actually took me to some Jacksonville Bulls games growing up, so I remember a little bit about it. But I was 6, 7 when it all went down.
Yeah, I remember the USFL. And what struck me back then was when it became a thing, it was big news, as if the NFL had never had competition before. And having done some research, no, there had been alternative leagues before. Do you think, I'm kind of skipping around here, were there always a bunch of different alternative leagues, or has this been an explosion in recent years? And we just didn't know about it in previous years because there was no internet. I mean,
Well, I mean, has it been as big and big as or as much of a thing to talk about? No, not really. I mean, yes, the internet does allow for us to, know more about things, more, I guess, quickly and more in depth right now. But I mean, the CFL doesn't exactly play at the same time usually as the NFL, so that's a league that's sort of an alternative league. They're indoor leagues. I know that the Arena League has come and gone a few different times. They're gone right now, but there's actually some rumblings about them coming back. But there's been indoor, just inside football for a long time. There is right now in a few different. I guess technically, I'm going to go on and put it out there. There's two this season or this year that are really high level talent. I mean, I'm not going to discount anybody, but the CIFL, they're really good, but they've had some teams that decided to opt out, so they weren't full when they did play, and some of the games that they had were canceled due to COVID still. But the NAL and the IFL, the NAL just wrapped up with the Albany Empire winning the championship. The IFL is still going a little bit. They've got, they're wrapping up their regular season, about to go into the playoffs. So, they've got that. But, there's always been something when it comes to the traditional outdoor thing. There's been minor leagues for a long time. They're still doing that, obviously. But when you think about something that is trying to go at the scale that the USFL was, there's the UFL, but there's not been a whole lot outside of anything that the NFL has tried to do that's been at that scale. We had the World League of American Football / NFL Europe for a little bit, but that was actually an NFL sanction. They did that whole thing. That was what they did. But even they gave up on their own project for a while. So, that's really the only reason it ended, is because the NFL decided not to back it anymore. And so they shut the doors, because I think at the time the idea was, alternative leagues, anything that's trying to, I still don't want to say compete with the NFL, because there's not going to be anybody to compete with the NFL. So it's like anything on that scale, is it just hasn't kicked, and it's not for the lack of trying. But like you said, there's been something. There's always been football year round. That's one of the things. I seriously just had this conversation with a neighbor just a few minutes ago. He's a big football fan, and I brought it to him. I said, "Hey, college football is about to start." Because I didn't want to say something about pro football, because there's always been pro football. It's a year round thing. So, but we just had that conversation. So,
what's your earliest memory of these alternative leagues after the USFL?
It would have to be XFL 2001.
2001.
I'd take that back. The WLAF, I was aware of that. I actually collected the football cards that they had, so I was aware of that. So I did know about all that stuff. I did know about the UFL, but that was United Football League, but that was a little bit after. But as a kid, I was still, even though I knew a whole lot about everything, that was something that I hated having to say I don't know about something. So, but the ease of having the information, as we talked about before, has never been as much as it is today with the internet. So, it was NFL and college football for me growing up, but I remember the WLAF. I didn't watch a whole lot of it, but I did remember that it was there. And then, but XFL 2001 was probably the first time as an adult, I guess, that I could say that, I was fully aware of there being a big league outside of the NFL.
And then now, when did you start writing about this and getting interviews on these things?
To really put it on any type of scale, when I started to report and talk about on anything like that, it would have to be the AAF a few years ago.
The Alliance of American Football.
Yeah.
It was what was amazing about that league was how frighteningly quickly it ended.
Well,
I was at my gym on a treadmill watching one of these games, watching them do a simple swing pass and miss the guy, and go, okay, this ain't the NFL. And then 2 days later on the internet, the AAF is done. And I'm going, wow, that was fast.
Yeah, well, not to oversimplify the thing, but it ended that quickly because it began that quickly. So,
yeah,
it was in the plans for a little while, but it was rushed. It was severely rushed.
So now you started researching the AAF, and then did you go on radio shows to talk about this? Did you start a podcast about this? How did you start getting into it as more than just a fan?
At the time, I was writing for a group that was a startup. It still is, but called pigskinnut.com. I was with them. It was quite funny. I was screen printing at the time. Excuse me. I was working in a screen printing shop at the time, and we were all talking about football, and and I saw this thing on Facebook, and this guy was looking for dudes to come on and write about football. So I was like, hey, this is something that I had done in the past. I've worked in radio and for a ESPN affiliate. So, been around sports, been reporting sports, been doing that kind of thing for a while, or at least being in a production part. I've other things in sports radio that I had done before. So I didn't really get into a podcast at that point, did later, but not at that point. I was writing about the AAF, and I did absolutely everything that I could, everything that I could get my hands on about the AAF. I was writing, and to be real honest with you, because of the way that the XFL was in 2001 and the way that ended, and I haven't necessarily been this is going to kill me with some fans, but I haven't been a wrestling fan since the early 90s. So like that didn't appeal to me. Vince McMahon did not appeal to me at the time. So I was all in on the AAF. At the time, I didn't want anything to do with the XFL. So, which I know that's kind of, you see me wearing an XFL jersey. So, that obviously changed. But at the time I was like, yeah, AAF, they're doing it all right, because that's what we were told. So, we were told that they were doing everything right. So that's what we believed. And the names involved with it, said that they were legit. I mean, you had Steve Spurrier there, you had Bill Poley in there, you had at the time, as soon as it started, Mike Vick was there. You had the ex-NFL coach Fisher was there. So, you had a lot of guys that were legit NFL football guys that you really thought that you could believe everything that was going on, but in the end, we found out otherwise.
Now, since the AAF ended, I imagine pardon my French, your bullshit meter has probably gotten a little better because you believed everything at first. Now, because you're looking at several leagues at once, are you starting to see through the press releases and the tweets a little better and try to gauge, okay, what's really going on?
Yeah, I can I can basically tell when somebody is trying to bullshit us. It's happening at this moment right now. It's happening. So it's something that that they're not going to pull another fast one on me. Not this guy. Plus, since then I've my contact list and my connections within the sport and within the business that is football is grown exponentially. So I've got, hey man, what do you think about this? What is this? Are we promoting this, or are we not really thinking about it? What's going on here? So I've always ask questions. Go into it not necessarily with a high level of skepticism, but with a healthy level of cautiously optimistic. So that's the thing that you got to stay when you're looking at this kind of stuff.
Now, you had mentioned a moment ago that you were screen printing at one point. Were you doing this when you started writing about the AAF? And now, have you transitioned out of screen printing entirely?
Right now, yes.
So, that's amazing. So now you talk and write exclusively about these alternative football leagues for a living. What was that? Talk about that last day of screen printing. At what point did you say, I don't need to screen print anymore? Was there a moment where somebody conscripted you to pay a bunch of money, or had you cobbled together a living here, a living there, a living there? Like, I have enough now. I don't have to do that anymore.
No, see, the way that it happened was I had an opportunity to do writing in a different type of format. I was writing at the time, or I had just learned about a job and had an interview, and everything went well about writing for a retired Navy SEAL, motivational speaker. He's a trainer. He just this guy is he's a combat survivor. He got hurt really bad in combat during Desert Storm, but now he talks about overcoming everything. That's his whole mantra, is overcoming any type of adversity. So I had an opportunity to write his blog, and so I took that, and being able to do that and take care of some things that needed to be taken care of, that the home life had shifted a little bit. So I needed to be able to be here at the house more often, and that allowed for that. And then, that's being able to do that helped me be here, take advantage of more opportunities, because technically at this time I'm still a free agent, but I'm freelancing for a few different places, and tying everything together, and it's helping us out a whole lot, and it's given me the opportunity to be able to say, yeah, I don't need to screen print anymore.
Was this all part of the plan, or have you pivoted along the way over the years? Like, I don't know what I want to do.
Well, as I said, I was in the radio business for almost 20 years, almost exclusively for sports radio. The company that I worked for the longest owned 6 radio stations. So I was there for the whole thing. They ran the gamut when it comes to stuff on the radio. Everything from classic country to adult contemporary, to a little bit of a college rock station, and then hip hop station, and then they also had an exclusive talk radio, and then the ESPN affiliate. So that's the one that I focused the most on. And so I had been around sports media for a while, and that's really what I wanted to get into.
And what happened? Was there a layoff situation, or?
No, this was a while back. I moved, so okay. I got out of that for a little bit, and I had the situation where the family moved, so I moved and wasn't working there anymore.
And so, you adapted as well as you can, and good on you. I mean, I am impressed and applaud anybody who can get rid of their day hustle to go after the thing they want to do. So, major points to you. John Wooden said something interesting. I was thinking about these leagues, and I was reminded of a quote by John Wooden, the great UCLA basketball coach, who said, if you want to see the purest version of basketball, watch the WNBA. He was not a fan of the, shall we say, acrobatic version of basketball that they play in the NBA, the above the rim stuff and the showboating and so forth. He liked the WNBA. Do you feel that way about these alternative leagues? Is there a league where you think that's how the game should be played, or do you spare those kind of judgments?
No, see, I understand exactly what he's talking about, because, when it comes to some of the really high level professional sports, it becomes a me situation. And so, especially when you come into something like the NBA, like basketball, where you can actually be more individual, because there's only 5 guys at a time per team on the court. So you can be more of an individual there. And, the sponsorships and all that, that's a game that is still a team sport at the purest level, but a little less of a team. One guy can really take over a game when it comes to basketball. Now, football is a completely different story. You got, depending on where you are, in Canada, they got 12 guys. Some indoor leagues only have 7. So, but you've got, traditional football is 11 on 11. It can't be just one guy. But now at the same time, there is some of that, in the NFL, and I understand exactly what he's talking about. These guys, the NFL, I never want to say that somebody's made it, that they can stop, because if you're going to be successful for long term and you're going to make the money that you talk about wanting to make, and you want to win the games and win the championships and get all that, then you have to work hard at all times. But you've got guys in these alternative leagues that are trying to get there. They're trying to, do whatever it takes to get to that next level, to get to the NFL. So their work is a little bit, I don't want to disrespect anybody in the NFL by saying this, but their work is a little more pure, because they're still fighting for that opportunity. Because, to be fair and not to be unfair to these leagues, but who knows if the doors are going to shut the next time, tomorrow these leagues may not be there. The NFL is going to be here for a long time. There has to be a whole lot to go wrong in a short amount of time for the NBA the NFL to be like, you know what? No, we're done. Yeah. So I'm not going to wake up tomorrow and get the same email that I saw from the AAF saying that they've suspended operations. So I'm not going to get that from the NFL. But any of these other leagues, it could really, the alternative stuff, it could happen. So these guys will be out there trying to find the next thing to help them fulfill their dreams.
Yeah, and I mean, you bring up an interesting point about job insecurity. I mean, there's a certain job insecurity in the NFL. If you're on a practice squad, you might be making $7,500 a week, which is a nice living, but you could get cut from that. But at least you made $7,500 a week. Some of these leagues, you're getting what, $200 a week or something like that. I mean, the paltry sums of money.
Yeah, some of the smaller indoor leagues, that's what they pay, $250 a week. And so I mean, there's depending on the situation. I won't ever want to say it's worth it because it's not, but it's not all that bad. But I mean, they're out there. Most of the time, you've got your insurance is paid for. In a situation like the most recent one where it was $250 a week, your housing is paid for, food's paid for, so that's not something that's got to come out of that $250 a week. But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, even the ones that are making, $2,500 a week, they still could shutter the doors the next day. So, and the average NFL career is 3 years. So, you've got to really, you look at it like that, and you look at these alt leagues and you're like, the average career is 8 months.
Oh, and not making much money while you're doing it, and still a lot of potential for injury too.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk briefly about these leagues. Wasn't there talk earlier this year of the XFL and the CFL merging, or was that just wishful thinking from some people?
No, they had began talking on a small level at the end of last year. From reports that we had gotten, and one of the places that I write for, the XFL News Hub, we're pretty plugged in to everything that's going on in the XFL, and there's still a whole lot of stuff going on in the XFL right now. Most of it behind the scenes, trying to make sure they get everything ready because they're not going to go back to the field until 2023. But they're still working to get everything ready to go and not have to do anything like what they did in the AAF. So, but no, they were talking. There was an opportunity there for them to collaborate. It never got anything near the football field. When it came to that, it was all business that they were talking about. So trying to figure out how they were going to share that. And more recently than that, just last week, Randy Ambrosie, the CFL commissioner, came out and said that the door's not shut on that. They just had to focus on getting on the field for their season, which started last week.
Yeah. Wow. That's heavy, talking about two leagues merging, because that's not something we hear about much. And speaking of not getting near the field, I've got to ask about Major League Football, which started, I believe, 7 years ago. They're unique because they're the only publicly traded sports league. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And they have yet to play a game, but they have not gone out of business.
Right.
Are they? What's going on?
Well, I appreciate that you asked that because I'm about as plugged into that as anybody can be. I was able to make friends with the CEO of the league about a little over a year ago, and we talk pretty often. Yes, they did start in 2014, but since then there's been at least 2 changes in management, and within those changes of management, there's been a little bit of a change in mission. They are one of the only, if not the only, publicly traded sports league. There are some teams out there. The Green Bay Packers is publicly traded. So, but no, they have not hit the field yet. And part of that, a big major part of that, is because they don't want to end up like the AAF. What they're doing, they did just announce last week 2 major hires. They got I'm not so sure that they're going to have him be the commissioner, but they've got one of their major dudes, and Mike McCarthy, not to be confused with the Dallas Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy, but this is a scout. He's director of scouting and player personnel in the MLFB. He was hired. He officially announced that, and then they've got their medical director officially hired there. So they got 2 major guys. Frank Murtha, the CEO, he's told me that they're starting to come down the pike. So we'll hear more coming up. They're planning on hitting the field next year. I know that they've said that for the last 3 years officially, that they've been trying to hit the field. But unlike some of the other leagues, and I can name them off, and especially one if you want to get into it a little bit later, but COVID hit them, and they had actually had a draft. They had coaches hired. They had things going. But it didn't come to fruition. That's not a lie. But one of the things that they're not doing is going out here making promises to anybody. They're not out here trying to sell tickets. They're not out trying to promote anything. What they're doing is trying to make sure that the fans and everybody involved, when they do get on the field, that they're going to be safe. And they're making sure that they have these lease agreements with venues to be sure that they've got a place to play. Because you can say you're going to play all the time, but if you don't have a place to play, what are you going to do? You're not going to be able to get into a church parking lot and go at it. So it's that's one of the big things that's going on with them, is they're making sure they've got the leases in the cities that they want to be in. And again, you can have all the players, you can have all the coaches, you can have all that, all the executives. If you don't have a place to play, you're not a league. They're not, like I said, they're not making promises. They're just making sure that they've got everything, all their ducks in a row before they actually hit the field. Now, this is the furthest that they have gone since having that draft a few years ago ever. So they've got over $2 million of their funding locked up. They've got hires that they've made. They're making more in the next few weeks. So you're absolutely right. They have not played yet. They've said they were going to play, but the biggest thing about them is they're not out here making promises, and they're not out taking advantage of guys like some other places that don't hit the field.
It sounds like they're erring on the side of caution and they're being methodical. And it sounds like if after 7 years of this, they still haven't ceased operations, then that's a good sign. You could spin that into a positive, as opposed to, well, we've been at this for 7 years, we can't take the field, forget it. So sounds like if you had to bet a nickel right now, they are going to have a season sooner or later, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I figured. That's what it sounds like. And speaking of safety, is the A7FL the one that plays without helmets?
They only had no hard pads at all. You can, as a player in the A7FL, wear a soft shell helmet. You can wear soft shell on the shoulders, on the knees, things like that, but no hard pads whatsoever. Full contact. This isn't flag football. It's 7v7. It's what that 7 is in the league. It's 7v7. They're the only ones around doing it, and they're growing. They're still growing. They just added Boston as a market. Or before last season, they were almost exclusively in the Northeast, talking about Baltimore area in New Jersey, around there. Last season, not last year, this year, but this past season, they added California and Florida. And then they just now added Massachusetts. So they're still growing. The rapper Snoop Dogg wanted to get involved, and I think they're still working on getting him in there. Before Deion Sanders took the job at Jackson State, he wanted to own a team in the league. Yeah, this is big stuff, and they did a study at the New Jersey Institute of Technology, and it said that they're safer than the NFL when it comes to concussions.
That's what I wanted to talk to you about, because I had a boxing trainer a few years ago who said that all the padding in the NFL, in a way, is counterintuitive. He said to me, look, if I told you to hit your head into that wall, you'd barely touch it, because your instinct knows you get hurt. And the more padded up you are, the more likely you are to attack and clash. And that actually causes more CTE and more damage than you would otherwise. You compare this to like rugby in South Africa and Australia and things like that. And these guys come out a little bloodied, but ultimately they don't have as many concussions as we do in the NFL. So I wanted to ask you about that. So do you think this is a trend that's going to continue, the less padding trend?
I don't know. They have been pushing, or not they. There's been a group that has been pushing for the NFL to scale back the helmets. They're not. They're just adding more technology to try to be able to get a better read on what's going on with the head and the brain. I don't know that this is really going to be a trend that's going to take off. I think the league itself will begin to grow. I don't think you're going to see more trying to be like it. Because, I mean, to be real honest, over the last few years, you've had a lot of parents come out, even former professional football players, that I'm not letting my kid play this sport. But again, what this does, you were exactly right in your assessment. What this does is it teaches you proper form of tackling, which is not with your head. It's with your shoulders and your chest. You go in, you don't lower your head. You go in face up so that you can see what you're hitting. Mm-hmm. Right. But because you got the helmet on, you feel like your head is safe. And that's just not the case. But again, like I said, this teaches proper form of tackling. And, that's the big thing. That's why instead of scaling back the helmet, they decided to, talk about, we're not going to we're going to penalize you no matter who you are, even if you're the ball carrier, for lowering your helmet. So, you can't use the crown in the NFL anymore, but they still got the helmet on.
Let's hope this becomes something resembling a trend. I love how the NFL doesn't want to scale back on padding, and yet when you watch the Pro Bowl, it becomes touch football. I mean, come on, guys. Don't tell me you're not afraid of being injured. Give me a break.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things they talk about with the preseason too. It's like, I had this discussion with a friend of mine the other day that had an issue with late in the game, Washington trying to go for the tie. Just kick the field goal. I'm like, but why? Here's a situation where you have players there that they need film, so the coaches are giving them opportunity to make plays instead of just kicking an extra point or kicking a field goal. And, he's like, oh, but somebody could get hurt. I'm like, it's football, man. Like, if you're worried about getting hurt, don't play football. I mean, that's the whole point. But again, though, too, with the Pro Bowl, it's not about getting film. It's not about, getting the next opportunity or trying to get the next opportunity or trying to make a team. I mean, you've been voted to the All-Star game. So, it is a little,
it's a free trip to Hawaii. I mean, let's be honest. You hang out with your buddy.
I mean, but not really anymore. They've been in Orlando and a few other places.
True.
So,
a couple more leagues here. We'll wrap it up. Fan-controlled football. This is fascinating. Talk for a minute about just how instrumental the fans are in controlling things. And in particular, I'm curious how the coaches feel about fans controlling what they're trying to do on the field.
Well, there's only one head coach. There's only one offensive coordinator, one defensive coordinator. Now, there are other position coaches and other football operations people there that are doing things, for the teams. But there's not, each team does not have their own coaching staff. Okay. Everybody has the same coaches. So it's basically because, you don't want that kind of thing to happen where you're trying to call a play and then the coach gets mad. Well, they were doing this for us and they weren't doing that for you. So it's also a cost thing. But at the same time, the players, the fans have a whole lot of control. Now, what happens is there are a set of plays that the fans get to choose from depending on a certain situation. These plays have been they've been chosen by the coaches, before the season, not before the season, but before the week of the game, to be used in certain situations, like 1st and 10 or 2nd down and 3, or 3rd and goal or 4th and goal, things like that, because they don't kick, just for those certain situations, so that the fans can try to make the right play. Now, what happens there is if you make a call as a fan and that fan or that play got voted on by the most fans, then your fan IQ goes up and you actually get a little bit more control. Going into it, there's not a whole lot. Not everybody has a whole lot of actual, control, but as you get more involved and as you stay interactive with the league, your fan IQ goes up, which does make your vote stronger and, has a little bit more pull than somebody who just comes off the street, because there was a lot of people asking, well, somebody can go in there and just do Hail Marys the whole time. I'm like, well, no, because they don't have Hail Mary as an option for a play every time. So, there's a lot going into it, but the fans have the control. They have the control from basically the top to the bottom when it comes to the teams. They vote on the names. They choose the names and then they vote on them. They do the same thing with the colors, the same thing with the logos, all that. Players every week. This is a true mesh of entertainment, fantasy sports, gaming, and being a community. So it's putting it all together, and it's really a pretty wonderful thing, if you ask me.
And now, what are the prospects for this? Is this going to balloon the way the A7FL is ballooning, do you think?
For season V 2.0, there's going to be 8 teams instead of just 4. And then the idea is to continue to grow as they continue.
Do you see, I want to pivot just for a moment. Do you see the NFL having any of these leagues having an influence on the NFL? Do you think the NFL is looking at them and going, maybe we should let the fans get involved a little bit more, for example?
I'm not real sure about the fans aspect of it, but these other leagues are already having influence on the NFL. They have just they've just taken some of the rules and some of the gameplay from the XFL and put that in the replay system, the camera system, that they used in the XFL to be able to sync up different angles from a certain play for the officials to see, so they get a better view of everything that they're about to look at. So instead of having to look at one camera angle here and then trying to get another camera angle here, they can get it all synced at the same time from all, like a 360 view. They did this in the XFL, and they've just adopted it for the NFL. So that's just one of the ways that these leagues are having an influence on the NFL.
Good. Competition is making things better for everybody. That's great. And finally, European football. I know there have been iterations of this over the years. Is the current iteration popular, and how much has Europe embraced the American style of football?
They have been playing American football in Europe in different countries for decades. And Germany is about at the top, but there's leagues in Poland, leagues in Denmark, there's leagues in France. They're all over Europe. There's leagues in Japan, if you didn't know that.
No.
They play a really, really good brand of football over there. As a matter of fact, just to put them on the map a little bit more, they just had their first two Japanese players play in the CFL last week. So yeah, these guys were from those leagues. They play a really, really good brand of football in Japan. But to go back to the European League of Football that you're talking about, this is about as big of a league as the NFL Europe was. It's the German football league is still one of the better ones over there. They still, like I say, got a whole lot of different stuff going on over there. I've got a bunch of friends that play in Europe, but this one, the European League of Football, it just started this year, and I'm gonna tell you what, man, it is really exciting to watch. Very exciting to watch.
Well, maybe I'll have to hunt some of that down. And in between all my life is about to get upended because the NFL season is going to start, which I cannot resist fantasy football. It's like crack.
Right.
I'm sorry. From September to January, I'm kind of worthless. So
same here.
Yeah.
Except mine's year round.
Oh, I cannot resist it. Josh Davis, where can everybody find you, man? What is your Twitter handle and what websites?
At DavisJosh20 is my Twitter handle. I write for the XFL News Hub, the CFL News Hub. Those are the two main spots that you can find me. I still talk to and still help out with the A7FL. So it's been a little while since I've had any content on their site. You can go to the NFL Draft Bible on Sports Illustrated and find some of my stuff, especially when it comes to Hub football. They're a football camp. That has I've lost track of how many times or how many players they've had sign since they started doing their camps this past year. So they're one of the premier workout camps. They do an OTA style workout with actual verified NFL scouts there and other leagues. CFL's been there too, but they're nobody's getting as many people signed as they are to the NFL. So I did some work for them. So you can find some of my stuff there, but primarily and when the FCF comes back up, you'll find me there because I'm on you can find some of my work on there from last season. But those are the two main places that you can find. Also, the NFL Sapient. I don't necessarily cover a lot of NFL unless it's certain type of topics, or I also cover a little bit of college football when it comes there. But again, it's certain topics. I've gotten almost completely away from reporting on the NFL. I just feel like a whole lot of people are doing it, and let them do it. I'm completely focused on these alternative leagues because I feel like these guys, and I say this all the time, as a matter of fact, my friends are tired of hearing me say it, but situations determine success more than talent does. And what I mean by that is the perfect example, and some people are tired of this too, we would not know who Tony Romo is if it weren't for Sean Payton being the offensive coordinator in Dallas. There's going to be some people that are going to say that I'm full of crap about that, but they went to the same college. And Dallas was looking for another camp arm, looking for another quarterback to come into camp to help throw to these guys. And Peyton was like, he went to Eastern Illinois. I went to Eastern Illinois. He's not bad. Let's bring him in. Let's bring him into camp. The rest is history. So, it's trying to get these guys situations, trying to get these guys pressed, because I feel like they deserve it just as much as everybody else does. And you're seeing a whole lot of, from the spring league to the old XFL, you're still seeing a lot of guys signing these contracts. There's been over, when camp started, there were over 80 guys who participated in either XFL or the spring league in an NFL camp right now. And these guys, even when they go back to those spring leagues, if they don't catch on in the NFL, when they go back to these alternative leagues, they've got just as much talent as anybody else, and they just need that situation. But the problem is, there's not a lot of press. You're not going to hear ESPN talking a whole lot about the ELF. You're not going to hear, CBS Radio, or definitely not the NFL Network or any of these guys, Fox Sports. You're not going to hear a whole lot from these guys on a lot of these alternative leagues. Now you will see the USFL, if they take off in 2022, you will see them on Fox. But all this other stuff, you're not going to see it, and that's not fair to these dudes because they are just as talented. The coaches too. I don't want to try to sell them short. The coaches too. They're just as good at coaches as they are anybody in the NFL, and that's what they're trying to do as well. They're trying to make their dreams happen. And if it weren't for these alternative leagues, then that wouldn't happen. So there right now is a particularly strong point for these alternative leagues because we just had 2019 had the AAF, 2020 had the XFL. We had last fall we had the spring league. We had them again at the beginning of summer, or the end of spring right into the beginning of summer. We had them again. You're seeing a whole lot of talent in these type of leagues right now, the spring league and indoor, because there is no XFL, because there is no AAF right now. So you're seeing, and in the European League of Football, I always bring up his name, but Madre London, he played football at Michigan State and the University of Tennessee. He also played in the spring league last fall. He was also part of the fan control football. It only took him 4 games to get over 1,000 yards rushing. They were off this week. Next week, he'll have over 2,000 yards, and they would have played 8 games. He's almost got 20 touchdowns. And it's not because of a lack of talent in that league. It's because he's that good. But he's not had that situation. So until they have that situation, they're going to be in these leagues. And I feel like, they need as much press as anybody else does. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to help these guys live out their dream.
And, good on you. And it's reflected in your Twitter feed. I wanted to say, I really appreciate how your Twitter feed, you're not just reporting news, you are a fan of these people. It's like a post about, you won't believe what this guy did. Check out this guy, check out that guy. And it's great that you are an ally for that. And you are the man when it comes to alternative football leagues. I don't know anybody who knows more about this stuff than you do. So good on you for doing that. Congratulations on following your bliss and turning it into a living. You're one of the few humans I know who've done that. And thank you for your time. Glad we finally found a time to chat because I know you've been quite busy. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you sticking with me here. It's been a process, and you started talking to me a long time ago. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew that I was not blowing you off. So it's been really busy.
I appreciate that, because a lot of people don't reply, or some people reply once
Right.
and like, nah, it's not my jam, thanks. But I really appreciate you spending time with me. Josh Davis, take care, man. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. Ciao.
I'm better now. I've had coffee, and I've had my porridge. Right after that interview, Josh Davis texted me, and he said, thanks for the interview. By the way, I forgot to add a couple things. So he wanted me to add these, so I'm adding them now. Number one, there's a documentary that's coming out called Alliances Broken. It's about the Alliance of American Football, that league that folded after, I don't know, 5 weeks, whatever it was, back in 2019. Well, there's going to be a documentary about it where they interview players, coaches, staff, and so on about the whole thing. So he says it's 100% legit. Check it out. It'll explain the whole story. I can't wait for it. And he also had this. Here it is. The NGL is a scam. NGL. The NGL is a scam. They're a, quote, league, unquote, that's been taking advantage of players and coaches for 3 years. Just rebranded themselves as the UFL, but it's 100% a scam, and I'm not afraid of being quoted, end quote. There's a lesson for you. If you're running an alternative football league, it better be legit, because you're not going to get anything past Josh Davis, my friend. That's the way that goes. And I respect that. This guy loves what he does, and it's the integrity that's there. He doesn't just spout press releases. The guy's all about the leagues and people, being honest about it, being upfront, being above board. He's a fan of these players and the people involved in these things, and he wants them to be the real deal. I think the rest of society could use people like Josh Davis. I think there should be more Josh Davises in show business. Could you imagine? Actually, I can't.